Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We've been doing a short series of lunch and learns over the past couple of months, and this is an exciting one that we wanted to bring to you about Kernza grains. And today we have Wendy Johnson with Joia Food Farm joining us today to talk about growing the grains. She has a farm in Floyd County. And then also Emily Murray, who's been using the flour from the grains to produce some delicious baked goods. So I won't spend any more time on that because I think they're going to give you a lot more information than I can share, and I'll let them take it away.
All right, thanks, Andrea. Like Andrea said, my name is Wendy Johnson. I'm going to talk to you about the growing and grazing and the harvesting of Kernza. And then Emily will take it to the next level. So just if anybody doesn't know what Kernza is a trademark name for a perennial grain crop called, it's a domesticated version of intermediate wheatgrass. And it was developed by the Land Institute, which is based in Kansas. And it's a nonprofit organization. And Kernza can be used as an alternative to annual wheat. Just a brief background of Joia Food Fiber Farm. We are 100% perennial, certified organic. We rotationally graze 140 ewes and lambs and 15 cow-calf pairs. We grow Kernza for grazing and for grain, and we've planted over 6,000 nut and fruit trees and shrubs. This is some of our grazing practices. So we rotationally graze. We move our animals every day during the growing season. And even in our tree areas, we graze between the trees until those trees are taller. This is just a screenshot of our virtual farm store. If you look to the left, those are all the different goods from all different kinds of farmers that in our area that we aggregate, purchase, and sell on our website. And then we do deliveries in pretty much a 45-mile radius of Charles City. And we also sell virtually online and ship once a month to our regional area of the upper Midwest. So one of the reasons why we decided to grow Kernza is we were starting to see lots of more extreme weather events. And so flooding is one that can really ruin an annual row crop year. And so we had a lot of flooding in 2016 and 2018, which really made us rethink about how we were going to be more resilient as farmers. I was at this time when these pictures were taken, I had row crop corn. You could see in one of the pictures there, you can see water is in the rows of corn. And so I was starting to just notice that we were seeing some soil wash away, and I didn't want my soils to wash away with flooding events that were becoming more and more extreme. So when I say extreme, for example, I think in 2016, we had over 6 inches of rain within a few hours, and the soil was already saturated because it was full of water. So this was a lot of tile water that was coming through, and we're at the bottom of a small watershed. And so we get a lot of everybody else's water, and then it flows into our creek, which turns into a river. And so we are fairly flat where we are, but it still is soil can move with water, extreme water events, rain events. This picture was taken last May. So you could see, so our farm is all green here. It's all perennial, and everything around us is predominantly corn. And I think in this year, mostly corn. And so you can see a lot of the erosion that's happening in a lot of the fields that are around our field. But we get to slow water down with our perennials. We do gain some of our neighbor's soil. And then we also help clean the water before it enters into the stream and eventually into our rivers. So you can see even on the upper left and in the center and the right, and even in the lower right, the amount of erosion that's happening. And that topsoil is, it's hard to grow back. It takes over 1,000 years. In addition, Iowa's nitrate levels exceed the EPA's recommended limit of 10 parts per million, and it's a real problem that we have. So annual row crops are things like corn and soybeans. We do grow those still. It's not that we don't, but for example, we had 3 separate tornadoes one year. I think it was 2021. And this is what I had to end up harvesting. And so what I'm trying to show here is the lack of resiliency that corn can have. High winds, we had derechos, tornadoes. Those extremes are happening more and more often. And we have a lot of exposed soil around us. And so with the high winds and drought and the heat, it blows soil away that's exposed. And Iowa's losing 5.5 tons of topsoil per year per acre. And so, like I said, it takes over 1,000 years to generate just 1 inch of topsoil. And so we really want to keep our soil covered as much as we can, which is why we chose to perennialize our farm. So this is just a chart from 1980 to 2024 on the number of billion-dollar weather disasters. And the colored lines are just in the last 8 years. We are seeing an increase in higher weather variability, which tells me as a farmer, hey, if I'm having this higher weather variability and I'm seeing it on the ground, I want to be able to keep my soil covered. I want to protect my soil. I want to protect our groundwater. And so that's why we've also, Kernza is such a great crop for us to grow. So this is pictures of annual wheat and perennial wheatgrass. So from September to June, you can see the root structure of Kernza. So the root structure of Kernza is could be 8 to 10 feet deep. And annual wheat is just a baby grass in September, while the Kernza roots are very long. So annual wheat is on the left side of those root structures, Kernza's on the right. And so you can see the bigger the root structure is, the better the water holding capacity is underground. And also it helps with your organic matter, increase your organic matter, and it increases life in the soil. So annual wheat has a very narrow and thin root structure, which doesn't hold a lot of soil, and it's annual versus a perennial. This is some of the soil structure of Kernza. It's like a chocolate cake, and when it's like a chocolate cake, it can hold water much better. If you have really dry, dusty soil underground, it doesn't have the aggregates to hold water. And if it can hold water, it can also withstand drought. So with Kernza, we were able to see a lot of flexibility. In 2023, we had 12 inches of rain the entire year. And in 2024, just in the month of May, we had 12 inches of rain. And the Kernza, it didn't even blink an eye. It soaked up the water with 12 inches of rain just in 1 month. And then it withstood and kept growing in a whole year of just having 12 inches of rain. So it's highly flexible in that sense. In terms of grazing, I hope I can show this video, but the picture on the right is what our animals do to the tops of the Kernza. So what we do is we graze Kernza in the month of May, then we let it rest to grow for grain, and then we graze it again. We take it for grain in August, and then we graze it again in October through December. It's a super resilient forage. And on the right, it's kind of like the sheep and the cattle, they chop it off right before the stem. And that's really important because the seed head is right inside the stem, but they're not very interested in eating anything below the stem. So that helps with keeps our grain from being terminated by them eating it. The other really great benefit is we have a large number of bobolinks or grassland birds that come. And these birds, you could see there, they fly all the way from Argentina, and they're grassland birds. They're amazing, and they love nesting in Kernza. And so every year we get to see, there's a female there and a couple males. We see an influx of grassland birds like dick thistles and bobolinks and eastern meadowlarks. And here again, this is our grazing. So on the left, this was cattle grazing. You could see what they did on the left and what they're going to on the right. And then the same with sheep on the right photo. They graze it just, it's almost like a shag carpet. They graze, they eat the tops and they leave the rest, and they'll move to the next paddock on the right. And then once they're off, we take the animals off around the early part of June, end of May, and then we let it grow. And this is what it ends up looking like. And we windrow it. So in the front part of the photo is a windrow of Kernza, and then in the background is the Kernza still growing. So we cut it when it's green. And this actually provides really good, the straw actually has the same RFE values, relative feed values, as a grass hay. So it has a second, there's multiple benefits to growing Kernza, but one of them is that you can take the straw and sell it for hay, or you could use it for your own livestock like we do, and use it for hay as well. And an amazing thing is that even in a dry year, so this was taken in 2023, again, at this point, we had maybe 9 to 10 inches of rain for the entire year. This was in August. The Kernza is growing mushrooms, and there's all these earthworm middlings in the soil, and it was so dry and so hot. But that means that there's activity in the soil, and that's what we really want to see. This is a windrower that we use to windrow the Kernza, and you can also take it direct cutting with a combine as well. We windrow just because we have the tools, and it dries down more evenly, and we don't have to blow air on it inside a bin. And so we windrow it, and then we combine it with a pickup head. It spits out the straw, it collects the grain. And then in October, it regrows, or September it regrows. We start grazing in October. On the left is a photo of cows grazing, and on the right is sheep and some cows grazing. But sheep eat very differently than cattle do. Cattle eat with their tongues. They pull in the grass into their mouth through with their tongues, where sheep are able to nibble. And so they're able to get down into the, really down to the ground. And that's what we really want to see, is because this is a perennial, so you plant it once and then it keeps growing year after year. You don't have to replant it. And so what we're finding and discovering is that sheep are able to really manipulate their mouths much easier than cattle. And so they reduce the population of the grass. They put a lot of stress on it, which is what we want to see. And why we want to see that is basically when you have a perennial, you want that plant, or that one seed that was originally planted, that grows up and grows grain, right? But when it's harvested, there are some seeds that get spit out the back. And so there's more growth, more seeds out there. The grain quality, or the grain, actually grows better when there's less competition. So if there's less competition of plants, the better the plant grows. And so here, sheep and cattle are putting a lot of pressure on those plants, and hopefully reducing the population of those, so it's not as competitive for those plants to grow. And then once we harvest the grain, we take it to a cleaner and dehuller. And this is how they clean the grain, and they dehull it. So the Kernza comes with a hull, just like oats, rye, and other small grains. And so they have to be dehulled. This video is the cleaner. So it's taking out any straw or weed seeds or anything that is coming out of the crop itself. And then on the right, this is the dehuller. And so it goes through a bunch of it hits different walls, and then it's able to take the hull off the grain. And then this is our end product. So we have our Kernza grain, which we sell on our website, the whole grain. It could be used for, you could boil it like you would rice, and you could make like a bowl where you could add fish or chicken or avocados or something like that, or greens into your bowl. It could be the base versus like a couscous or a quinoa. And then we also work with Bakersfield, which is our miller, and we mill it. They mill it into a flour. As a farmer, I don't have the tools like a dehuller and cleaner and a mill. And to sell licensed food grade flour and grain, I have to send it to a licensed facility. So Bakersfield helps me out with that. They're a licensed facility to sell whole grain, and they're a licensed facility to mill and then make it into a flour. Currently, the current demand for Kernza is we're working with, I'm sorry, when I say we, I'm part of a co-op called Perennial Promise Growers Cooperative, and we aggregate, it's a co-op of farmers, and so those farmers grow grains that come out of the Forever Green Initiative out of the University of Minnesota. Kernza is one of those grains. And so we can then sell our grains in sum. So we aggregate and we have a larger supply that can be sold to larger companies like General Mills, Sturdy Wheat, Deschutes Brewery, all of these companies shown here. Patagonia has been one of the largest buyers of Kernza. They have a pasta program, and they also have a beer program. Sturdy Wheat they create a pancake mix and some bread flour. And then General Mills had made a cereal and is continuing to make a cereal. High protein nutrition is a consumer trend. So Kernza is a 15 to 17% Kernza. I'm sorry, 15 to 17% protein. So it's a higher protein than an annual wheat. And so I'm going to pass it on to Emily with Carbo Load Baked Goods to share what she does.
Hi there. Thank you, Wendy. So my name is Emily. I'm with Carbo Load Baked Goods. I have a licensed in-home bakery right here in Floyd. I'm like 10 minutes away from Wendy, so it's really convenient that she grows the local grain for me. So I've been using the Kernza in several different ways. I specialize particularly in sourdough. So I'm very passionate about giving back our bodies what we need as far as fuel and making sure we're eating gut healthy foods. And Kernza is amazing for that. Kind of going off of what Wendy said about it being a higher protein percent, that is amazing for baked goods because a lot of baked goods, sourdough specifically, it works really well with a high protein percent flour. So I do lots of different breads, specifically sourdough. I do a lot of different types of sourdough breads, from cinnamon sugar, garlic, things like that. I just tasted out. I've been working with making like banana breads and things like that. I make sourdough bagels, cinnamon rolls, cookies, and I always add in a percent of Kernza to all my baked goods. The test with that is it can be 5%, 10%, 20%, and it varies. So baking is very scientific, you could say. And adding the Kernza in different percents in different products has kind of been a fun experiment for me because I love seeing how it comes out. My latest thing I've been trying to do is pasta. I don't specialize in pasta, but I've been really eager to try to do pasta and be able to provide that product for the consumers out there and get Wendy's product into a different type of thing that we're used to as far as what I provide. I also mill the Kernza myself, so I do have an at-home grain mill I use myself, and that's what I get from Wendy is the grain, and then I mill it. So every time I make a baked product, it's made with fresh milled Kernza. Um, I used to mill different types of grains like prairie gold, wheat berries, and things like that. And then when I started milling Kernza, I was like, oh my goodness, it is like so fluffy. It comes out, it's very, very light. So it does absorb water a little bit differently than other grains. Um, so it takes up a lot more room in packaging than I was used to when I would package up fresh milled flour. So it's completely different, I think, than a lot of traditional grains, which is a good thing because it works so well with breads. So when you are milling Kernza, it is best to keep it like in an airtight container or store it in your fridge or your freezer. So that's why I just mill the day of when I'm prepping my dough, because it's too hard to keep fresh grain because it can spoil really fast. Um, I also am able to mill the grain and mill it into a flour myself and sell it to other businesses. So then they can get the benefits of um, the flour themselves. I have a few local businesses, Skyview Market right here in North Springs, Three on the Tree Coffee Shop in Mason City, and the Market in Osage. So here's some examples of some of my more common products I do. So my sourdough loaf I make, that pictured on the top left, I found a 90% bread flour with 10% Kernza flour yields the best product that I am most happy with. Um, a lot of times I feed my sourdough starter with Kernza about once a week, just to kind of give it that nutrition back to the starter itself and that nutty flavor that I really like. Um, I've also been making take and bake doughs as well. So pizza dough has been my newest take and bake product. And I make that with the Kernza as well, and it yields a very nice golden brown crust with that nutty flavor, which I thoroughly enjoy, and I think that pairs really well with sourdough. And because when I mill it, it still has all the germ and um, all of the grain goes right back into the product, so we don't lose any nutritional value with that. So it's really nice to see the kind of the flakes into the dough. So if you've ever received one of my products that is made with Kernza, you'll notice there's like brown speckled flakes in it, but that's because I don't sift anything out. I like to have that nutrition go back into our product. Um, and so I also make like sourdough bagels and things like that. And these are just a few of what I do. But I always strive in every single one of my products to have the Kernza flour present in the recipe. And here's some more of what I've been doing as well with the Kernza. I also do pancake / waffle mixes, dried in bags. And so um, the Kernza is in there, and I actually was just prepping like a whole 5-gallon bucket of pancake waffle mix that I blend up with my dried sourdough starter and the Kernza and all that, and package that up and sell those as different flavors. I've been working on pasta and trying to figure out a good ratio because I'm really passionate about making it a sourdough Kernza pasta, because I think that is something I want to continue with my business, is continue that sourdough model. I also put in all my cookies. So my cookies are made with Kernza, all my cinnamon rolls, my sweet rolls, and my tortillas. So that's why a lot of my products have more of a golden look, because of that Kernza is going back into it. And it provides such an amazing flavor that I don't want to steer away from that at all.
So this is our contact information. We welcome questions. I know we got to 30 minutes, which is really great timing. Good job. So if you'd like to find more of our products, you can go to our websites and our Instagrams and email us. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I'm really excited about all the products Emily's making out of the grains, because I guess I'm gonna have to look into those a little more. I've only tried a few things. I did get some rolled Kernza from Prudent Produce. It's maybe not, it wasn't from maybe your farm, but somebody else is doing it. And I've been adding it to my morning overnight oats and it adds really nice. I'm guessing, I didn't really realize the extra protein value, but it does add a very nice texture and, you know, nutty, like you said, nutty quality to it. So yeah, I'd like to open this to questions. We have quite a few people on, and anyone who has a question can speak up or raise a hand and we can call on you, whichever works, or put your questions in the chat too is good. I see Jody has come on the screen. So if you have a question, or it looks like Mark is unmuted, so maybe one of you two, if you have a question.
Yeah, so I'm Mark Reland and actually work with Wendy at Perennial Promise Growers Co-op. And this is really fun for me because I've been kind of sequestered to do a bunch of more tactical and logical things in the supply chain. So it's really fun to see what you're doing, in particular, Emily, with your product. And my question for you is, actually a family member had sent some of Sturdy Wheat's pancake mix to a young family. And the information that came back was that of the two children, they seemed to like have more time between meals. Is that because of the higher protein, do you think, in that pancake mix? And is that something that would obviously be unique to, you know, any product, including Kernza, that would have a higher protein content?
I would say so. I can't say that specifically for my own children personally. um, but I would definitely say that it does have a lot more sustenance to it than the typical grain that is used in like a traditional pancake mix. And then just f- giving them a more nutritious pancake regardless, I think is the best thing you can do if they're going to, want to have pancakes, which actually my daughter just had some pancakes because that's what I was bulk making it, and she wanted chocolate chips in it. And so as a parent, I think that is just important to include what they want, but also give them nutrition. And if that means, putting in pancake form, like why not? And so um, I think having that protein in there is super important and healthy for everyone. And it probably does make sense.
Well, great. Well, thank you. We appreciate all you're doing to kind of help help the movement.
Thank you.
I was just asking if Kernza is suitable for more southern climate and hilly type climate. I mean, I would think a perennial would be great for hilly, and also thinking about agrivoltaics, and if that's something that you're aware of and can be grown and sheep grazed under agrivoltaics, solar.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kernza can be grown in southern Indiana. There are a few different varieties. You do have to get a license to grow it from the Land Institute because it is a trademark grain. So that's the first step. And once you get your license, then you can purchase the seed. I purchased my seed from Albert Lee Seed House. But I also grow for seed as well. But it is, after that, you could plant that in your area. It would be really great on rolly hills, specifically because of its root structure. It keeps the soil in place, and it's a perennial. Let's see, what was your last question?
Oh, do you know of anyone using it for under solar panels in
Oh,
the
yeah.
voltaic system with sheep?
So I think you'd have to, if you have agrivoltaics, that would mean that those solar panels are higher. And Kernza grows to about 3.5 feet. So to be able to harvest it, you'd have to harvest. I don't think you could harvest the grain underneath.
That's my other question, because could you just graze it?
Yes, you can just graze it. It is a forage crop.
Yeah, there's another question also about any special challenges related to growing Kernza, and then how accessible is it for beginning farmers to grow it on a pretty small scale?
So you have to think about your end result, what do you want to do with the Kernza? Do you just want to grow it to graze it, or do you want to grow it for grain? And if you want to do both, then growing it for grain requires a market. If you are doing something similar to what I'm doing, is growing it for my own market, then I think at a small scale, if you had access to a combine and you were able to combine it standing, if you didn't have a windrower, for example, then sure. I know a farmer in central Iowa who has about 10 acres of Kernza that he grows, and he markets it himself. He works with his local brewing company down on his main street, sells it to them for brewing, works with a baker, makes it into rolled oats. I mean, he has a whole line of product that he sells, and he just does it with 10 acres. So it is accessible, but you do have to get a license again, like I said, from the Land Institute to be able to grow it. And that doesn't cost anything. So if you're willing to kind of market it yourself, if you market through the co-op, if you become a member of the Perennial Promise Growers Cooperative, there is a fee to becoming a member, but then we help aggregate and just get your Kernza sold to buyers. As to be fully transparent, the current market is really, we have more demand than we have supply for certified organic Kernza and regenerative organic certified Kernza. And so if anybody out there is already certified organic, we would be interested in talking to you for that. Conventional Kernza is coming up a little slower because if you think about the health market, those who are looking for higher protein grains are mostly also looking for certified organic at this time.
Okay, I am coming back, Dallas. Don't worry, I see your question, but I did want to follow up since we were talking about the licenses. There was a follow-up question about, do you need to have secure a new license every time you plant it? And the example was, if you planted in a different field in a different year, do you need to get a new license for that?
I don't believe so. Mark, you came off mute. I don't know if you have a better answer, but I believe if you have a license to grow Kernza, you can grow it, continue to grow it on different fields.
Yeah, so I think the Land Institute is really just kind of interested in seeing and tracking, what activity is going on. I will call out, I don't know if you mentioned, Wendy, that that they are requiring now, I believe, 20-acre minimum.
Oh, I didn't know that. Good to know.
Yeah, and since we were mentioning the Perennial Promise co-op, I did put the link to that in the chat if anyone wanted to go and visit that website. But going back to Dallas's question, and you guys are welcome to come off mute if you want to ask your own question, but otherwise I'll read them out here. Oops, now I've lost it. Got to go up. It had to do about related to distillery. Here we go.
Yeah, I can come off mute here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't know, because I'm a distiller, and actually last January just processed 13,000 pounds of Kernza into whiskey and vodkas and stuff. And we're regulated by the TTB that if we're advertising a Kernza based product, it has to be at least 51% Kernza. And I didn't know if bakers had a similar regulatory agency, like if you're advertising a Kernza sourdough, is there a percentage level that it has to be of Kernza grain in order to advertise that?
Not that I'm aware of. And actually, General Mills is starting a 1% campaign, putting a 1% in their flour. So I've never heard of there being a minimum that Kernza has to be included. This is news to me about the distiller use of Kernza. What does TTB stand for?
That's the federal, it's the Tax and Trade Bureau. They oversee the alcohol, tobacco, firearm, and explosives. So ATF, the federal agency that regulates the manufacturing of alcohol.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, because I would very much like to lessen it because it can be a really difficult to distill with and produces since it is higher in protein, lower in carbohydrates, it yields half of what it does on compared to a wheat variety. It handles really similar to rye and oats if you combine the worst qualities of both.
No. Interesting. The Land Institute would be the best qualified organization to answer that question. I think I don't think anybody is here on the call from the Land Institute, but
Yeah, and Dallas, did you have another question about Patagonia?
Yeah, I just didn't know because you were mentioning your Kernza co-op if you guys have done any conversations with Patagonia of opening up the restriction of their regenerative organic Kernza, because I know more organic based farms that don't have the regenerative organic license and certification, and so I know they were looking for, there was, yeah, Patagonia switched theirs over and there was kind of a dip in buyers because of that, and I didn't know if your co-op was help lobbying against Patagonia to see if they would change any of that.
I'm going to pass that to Mark. Mark is a really good, he's got the 411 on that information if he hasn't.
Yeah, and I apologize. I'm on my iPhone here, so I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So Dallas, great question. We've got actually probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 members, and most of our membership would find it kind of problematic to move on to the ROC because of all of the requirements. If you're organic, you're basically a third of the way there, but if you have livestock, it's a different consideration. And then also, if you have employees, that's kind of a third rail, if you will. So, I mean, I haven't been involved directly with the conversations with Patagonia, but the ROC component of it is more of a challenge, another hurdle, if you will. So, yeah, they're trying to move over to ROC as quickly as they can, and we'll just see what type of supply we can work with because again, there's a cost factor and all the incremental work that goes into it. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think some of this is yet to be worked through, like a lot of stuff with Kernza.
No, thanks, Mark, for answering that. Yeah, you did kind of hit it. At least, yeah, working on it. Yeah, because I know some organic growers that are, like you were saying, just a third of the way to that ROC cert, and they were losing their sales that were being combined and going to Patagonia because of that switch. And yeah, just as good seeing that there are some lobbyist groups keeping the good fight.
Yeah, and I guess there's another question for Emily here related to how your customers have responded to the changes in your products. Have they had any feedback for you?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from it. I've heard several times that people like the new flavor of the bread. And I think a lot more people, particularly customers who buy locally, they appreciate the local grain. They love the fact that it is purchased local. I was using and milling my own grains before purchasing locally, but they weren't yielded locally. So I didn't have that passion to say, like, it is local because they were states away and then just shipped here. But knowing that this is literally 10 miles from my house, and I don't even think it is 10 full miles, it's like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from basically each business I sell to. So it's not just one particular business. And that is just such an amazing response because I'm glad that they're just as happy as I am about the product and knowing that it is locally sourced and that I can talk about Joia Farm and all the good that they do to go along with my product, because I love combining our, small businesses together to help each other.
Yes, and that's unless there's any other questions, that's a perfect segue into thanking everyone for coming. And Healthy Harvest is nonprofit organization that does support all of the local farmers in our region. And I just posted in the chat our local food guides. So if you're looking, in addition to Wendy's Farm and Carbo Load, there's a lot of great local products in this area. So check out our website. And also, if you're interested and you're kind of a foodie and supportive of this type of work in North Iowa, we would love to have you as members also of Healthy Harvest. So thank you so much for joining. And this recording will be published, I guess, or I don't know, whatever it's called. Consolidated, yeah, and we will have it available for people if they want to go back and revisit anything, and we can send it out to the folks. There's a few that didn't make it on today, so yeah, thank you so much, Wendy and Emily, for being on our our webinar, and thanks for being our guest today.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.